Well, here we are again for another episode live from Tijuana. You can see the hotel room in the background, and just to keep it simple, and I know these backgrounds are cheesy, but I'm just doing a virtual background, so we don't have to, we could do this. We could go really green, but
You need a beach.
I know we need a beach one. I'll try to download a beach one for the next interview, but for right now, we'll stick with our go-to Tijuana background. So pardon the background special effects people, but I'm just trying to keep the hotel room out of the background. But we've got a great guest right now. He's Dr. Dave Altman, and he's a chiropractic physician and specializes in functional medicine, which is great, using nutrition to help the body help itself naturally. I do want to throw out the disclaimer. We're going to talk about boosting your immune system naturally, as we've talked about in some of these other interviews so far. Really foundationally, it's coming down to it's the immune system's job to fight viruses, bacteria, fungus, and even cancer. And so when we're talking about helping people naturally boost their immune system to fight those things, we're not saying we're treating cancer, especially for our American physicians. We've got to be careful how we say things. We may be helping people that are fighting cancer to strengthen their immune system. And those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. So Dr. Altman, is there anything else about yourself you'd like to share, some background before we jump into topic?
Well, I've been in practice for 21 years, and when I started off early on, I just realized that the people who got better the fastest were the ones with the best nutrition. So I wanted to make sure I learned as much as I could about nutrition. So all I did for years and years and years was I went to every seminar, I listened to every, person I could find, read every book I could find, and I really got a heavy dose of education in about 2 to 4 years. And I haven't really stopped ever since, but it's been an awesome journey. And that's really my I don't have any special degrees in it. It's just something I've personally learned and personally tried to learn as much as I could, because it's really for me and my family. And I actually just share stuff with patients because I think they need to know stuff too. But it was a personal journey, and it goes farther beyond than that, because you want to talk about cancer. And I've got 3 relatives that have all died from cancer. So it's been an even more personal journey for me for the last, 6 years, 7 years, 6 years. Yeah.
So with that said, I love where you're coming from. Your passion's already about, well, what would I do? And I asked another speaker on another call, and I'm going to ask all of our people at the end of the call, if they had a certain diagnosis, what would they do? But it seems like you're already prefacing it that you do what you do because you believe in it for you and your own family, and not like do as I say, not as I do is not your pitch as a doctor.
No, I have an open invitation if anybody wants to see like any of the orders that I do for like supplements, anything like that. I order infinitely more than any patient does. I take more supplements. I even posted a picture a month ago or so of my counter where all the immune supplements were sitting, just so patients could see this is what I personally do. If you want to do it, great, but these are the reasons that I do these particular things, because they're going to have an effect on my immune system. And right now everybody needs a super immune system because nobody really knows exactly what is going on.
Right. And we talked about another one. It seems like the best offense is a good defense, meaning having a good, healthy immune system to defend against whatever is coming along, regardless what it is.
It's really all you have, actually. You don't really have another choice if you want to be healthy. And the same thing for cancer, same thing for Alzheimer's disease. They're all in a prevention mode. If you don't work on prevention on the front end, you're going to end up having a hard time at the end. Okay. So same thing with this.
So preventatively speaking, what are some simple steps or simple supplements that we can implement in our daily routine to help boost our immune system naturally?
For the immune system?
Yeah.
Just specifically?
Just generally, yeah.
The easiest things people could do, the really easy things you can do is get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. Matthew Walker has an amazing book on why we sleep. And it's a very technical book. It's filled with references. But ultimately, if you don't get enough sleep, your immune system will suffer greatly. Mm-hmm. You need at least 7 hours of sleep. That's more than almost everybody seems to get right now. Mm-hmm. That's an easy thing to do, but not really, because you need to actually do it. Mm-hmm. And then sugar. Sugar is an immune system wrecker. It destroys the immune system. And people are sitting at home right now, like doing comfort foods, like powering through as much junk food as they possibly can, as much processed food as they can. And that's all sugar, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But sugar is an immune system destroyer.
Gotcha.
And stress. Unfortunately, stress is also the only thing that will bring me down. Like in 21 years of practice, I've never missed a day from being ill.
Mm-hmm.
I've never missed a day at work. The only thing that's ever come close is when I don't get enough sleep and I have too much stress for multiple days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been totally taken down, but it's the closest I've ever come.
Wow,
so those are the big things. Other than that, I mean, I've gotten rid of sore throats in 45 minutes. I mean, it's not anything that most people can't handle, but if stress and sleep are not going well for you, then you're going to have a really hard time with just about everything else.
Okay. Gotcha.
So those are the three big things.
Great. Well, those are great tips. And I hope the audience takes those to heart. So here we are in Tijuana, and we're trying to help my wife fight cancer naturally. And you've had family members that have been fighting cancer naturally, or you've helped them deal with it naturally. Of course, we're not treating cancer, but what tips or suggestions did you have for them to help them fight it naturally?
Well, I can start off with my uncle. My uncle died at 59 years old of metastatic lung and brain cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first exposure I had on a personal level. And I went over to his house, and I had a come to Jesus talk with him about basically going organic, eating more organic foods, eating real whole foods, no more sugar, no more diet sodas, no more processed packaged foods. In 24 hours, we had a brand new kitchen. So I know it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
So in 24 hours, he went from a relatively standard American diet to a more holistic, healthy diet.
Okay.
And he lived longer than any other person that's ever lived in the university hospital that he was going to with metastatic brain cancer. They didn't know what to do with him because he lived so long. Now, they didn't listen to everything, and I don't know all the answers, and I wasn't treating him, but I was helping him with his nutrition, helping with his general health and well-being. Yeah. And if a really healthy person goes in with cancer, it's much, much harder to be taken out.
Okay.
Now, my biggest problem with that is they never stopped chemo. They never stopped. They just kept poisoning him for years. So that ultimately destroyed his nervous system and turned him into a vegetable, which then ended his life. So that was really hard for me, but that was my first exposure to seeing how powerful nutrition can be in the real world for helping people live longer. Not a treatment, but helping you live longer and be a stronger, more robust person.
Gotcha.
And then my father-in-law developed cancer back in 2013, something like that. And we had the same rounds, the same stuff. But once again, I don't treat cancer. I just help people live longer and help them with nutrition. So same problem. And that's when I realized that there's a whole nother level to cancer. You have to do nutrition. You have to do all the things that help your immune system. We can talk about lots of stuff. I got 30 some odd things we can talk about if you want to learn about them. But ultimately somebody has to go to some sort of alternative treatment center. Mm-hmm. And that's what we didn't do, because I didn't know enough about the treatment aspects, the alternative, because a lot of those are underground. People don't talk about it because the authorities will shut them down, and people will, why don't you do chemo? Why don't you do radiation? I'm like, well, most people die of that anyway. And he tried some of that stuff, and he said he'd rather die than do any more chemo.
That's a common thing I hear from people that they've had loved ones that have done chemo. And I'm going to interview an oncologist in America that does chemo and radiation later in this series. But that's the common thread that I keep hearing is those that have done it say, oh, it's the chemo that's killing me. Or those that are the loved ones that are the companions that support those people say, oh, I swear it was the chemo that killed them. That's just a horrible thing to hear, that when we're trying to help, that we're doing more harm than good. But go ahead.
Oh, so basically, when he died, it was probably one of the most stressful times of my entire life. Mm-hmm. But as usual, God has a different plan, and a lot of things came to me almost like a month after he died. And one of them was the Truth About Cancer series popped up, and also some other references and some other books that I had that had a whole bunch of information about alternative cancer ideas and thoughts and treatments and all kinds of stuff that I'm like, wow, I didn't know all this existed out there. And that's what I wished everybody knew, is there was more than chemo and radiation. I didn't know how much there was. That was like 6 years ago. Now that's all I've ever looked for. It's all I ever study. And I write down everything I've ever learned, any treatment I've ever heard, because I don't want to ever run out of options again for anybody.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I've got a list. I'd say I have 35 things now that I have as potential treatments that some have heard of, some have never heard of. But anytime I've ever heard of anything that has anything to do with helping somebody with cancer, I'd write it down just in case, because there's so much you could do. And that's the one thing I don't treat. So I would help people with, nutrition and lifestyle, because a lot of people need help with that. But then I would encourage people to seek alternative treatment somewhere else. Mexico, Germany. There's a lot of different places that do a lot of different treatments that are very, very different than the United States. And they have pretty darn good success rates.
Absolutely.
And even, even Stanislav Brzezinski, I mean, he's one of the most successful brain cancer treatment centers in the world. And for 20, 30 years, they've been trying to put him out of business because he's too successful. He takes the worst of the worst people. He's down in Texas, and he's constantly, I mean, what a hero, man. He is constantly under attack all the time for saving lives. I'm like, what is wrong with the FDA? What is wrong with the Texas Medical Board?
I don't understand that. I don't get that either. Well, I think that's where, and we won't go down this rabbit hole, but I think that's just where it becomes very money driven. As we've looked at this with Shannon, thinking, okay, when a patient comes in to the American model, and sorry, American model, I don't want to step on your toes, but I just got to share our experience, is it's costing us to do natural care here what it would cost us just the copays in America to do chemo and radiation, which that's all they offer. They don't offer any immune support. They only offer the toxicity of chemo and radiation. And it's over $21,000 per treatment. So whether a patient lives or dies, the system makes between $250,000 and $500,000. So why really try to find a cure for something that's such a profit center? Yeah. That's
why they won't really ever have one. That's why they actively suppress them.
Yeah.
So I actually have a book with pages and pages and pages of. I'm an old book collector. A lot of people don't know that. I have a lot of old books on nutrition, because all the really, really, really good stuff for anybody who's listening, if you really want to learn stuff, is pre-1950. Before 1950s, the amount of nutritional knowledge is incredible. And I've got some really old books with a whole boatload of old treatments that have all been suppressed for one reason or another from various different authorities, because heaven forbid you can't have any treatments out there. So,
well, you can't do a double-blind study on some versus one thing that's healthy versus another thing that's healthy. So, I mean, come on, it's all anecdotal, right?
Right. You can't really do a double-blind study or anything on a food product, or a natural therapy, because there's too many variables. Because there's too many pathways that things can go down, and it's not an isolated thing. And isolated things aren't really good for the human body. So you need all the synergists anyway. So you'll never really have it. But anecdotally, I mean, I just tell you from my own family and my own uncles, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to me, and I was having this conversation with somebody on Facebook today, where they're like, "Oh, well, the double-blind studies, and it's not scientifically backed." And for every study that proves one thing, there's a study that proves almost the opposite. And to me, I would much rather have case studies and anecdotal add-ups to say, okay, well, how did this actually affect a person, rather than the junk science that's out there trying to prove a point to sell a pill. But that's me.
Oh, I know. Most people think I'm crazy because we do a lot of really natural, holistic things, but it doesn't bother me at all. Everybody in my family is very, very healthy, and I don't worry about too many things.
All right. Well, I think one of our key focuses we're going to do is where our specialties lie as chiropractic physicians is really in the prevention. So what are some things that you like to do to help people prevent these, like we were talking about, early viruses and even cancer?
Ultimately, it's what you need to do all the time for being healthy. This is kind of what I do. This is what we do at our family. So you really need to, like I said, get a good night's sleep. You need to have control of your stress. So like right now, I'm sitting outside. It's a beautiful day. You need to focus on the things that matter to making your whole life. So mind, body, spirit, having a good relationship with God, whether it's whatever you believe, but that's been a proven thing to help people live longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and your mental health. So making sure that your mental health is adequate. So that's a whole nother topic. Physical health. It all matters in becoming a holistic person. So making sure that you eat good food. So real food, learning how to cook, actually, like fruits, vegetables, grass-fed or organic meats, fish, the basic things that people know they should do, but they don't always do it. Decrease their toxin load. Toxins, you realize that toxins are one of the most prominent things according to the, I think it's cancer.org. If you look that up, I think it's about 44% of all cancers are related to toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the largest percentage of all things. So decreasing toxins in your life, that means anything from your shampoos to your grass fertilizer to your laundry soap and your food. That all plays into how toxic you are. If you could decrease, and
sunscreen and even cell phones. I mean, goodness, there's a big beef about this.
That's going to be this year's project, is understanding the ramifications, because there's a tremendous health destruction from 5G radiation, and people are trying to cover that up right now. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole nother project. That's a whole nother topic. Mm-hmm. But if you go start researching it, we even sat in. I don't know. You remember? Did you sit on Dan Murphy's seminar?
I missed that one a couple weeks ago. Dang it.
Yeah, the fundamental simple version of that is the 5G radiation. He went through all the physiology of it and the neurology of it, like he typically does. He's a chiropractor, for those of you who don't know him. And ultimately, it opens the voltage-gated calcium channels and allows calcium to flood into your cell and destroy your cells. So the more you can avoid the cell phone radiation, the better and healthier you're going to be, the less cell damage you're going to have. And he related it to, interestingly, glutamate and aspartate, which are both neurotransmitters. They both open those calcium cells and cause cell destruction. So one of the things you can do is take magnesium. Magnesium blocks, and he had little diagrams on that, blocks that calcium channel. So even if it opens, the magnesium will help block that. Most people are deficient in magnesium. So it's a great, great supplement. We take it at our house every day. But those are the simple things that cell phones can do to destroy parts of your body, and it's better to keep them off of you. And eventually we'll have a lot more research come out about that. Some great books you can read, but we can talk about those another day.
But even with this is the new one, the new 5G, but there's been problems with 2 and 3 and 4G, because we've seen pictures of women that get a breast tumor or something where they keep putting their phone in their bra, or people that keep putting their phone in their back pocket and they're developing stuff. Matter of fact, that's honestly one of the concerns I think we're facing with Shannon, is a lot of technology on her lap for years and years and years. But that's, it's hypothetical at this point. But
so I'm the health and wellness coordinator for a breast cancer charity, and I write articles, and I've traveled overseas to help lecture for them. And after I had written a bunch of stuff about 3 years ago on breast cancer, I have a whole little book on breast cancer, the basics, the things that you should know about that they don't tell you about. And it's interesting when you start doing research. I put a lot of research into it, and there's a whole lot of stuff that is selectively hidden from the official websites. They tell you about certain things, but not other things. And it's I don't want to talk about it here, but it's very interesting when you start digging into the whole history of it. But after I published some articles on that, I had a patient send me kind of a long story, which I republished for patients because I got her permission. But her husband had a cell phone shaped breast cancer. Because he always kept this. Yeah, he had a cell phone tucked in his shirt pocket for his whole life, and ended up having a cell phone shaped breast cancer tumor, and nobody cared. Nobody wanted to look into it. Nobody wanted to talk about it.
Oh, why isn't that on the news rather than the ridiculous stuff we hear all the time?
Yeah. So that's a big, big, big subject. And the way I look at it is probably there's 2 things I think everybody should think about. And that is how to prevent cancer and how to prevent Alzheimer's, because those are 2 big things that will dominate most people's lives. And they're really the only 2 things that you need to focus on prevention more than anything else. Absolutely. And if you can prevent those 2 things, almost everything else in life will go away.
Yeah.
Because all the other things, those are like the top of the pyramid, the top of the pile problems. And most things are less important than those. And they're all precursors to those big problems.
And I can't
So
imagine, because those are things that affect not just the individual, but they affect all the people surrounding them. So if we're not, I look at it myself going, okay, if I'm not proactively trying to prevent these two problems you just mentioned, because the cure really is in the prevention. Would you agree with that? If I'm not doing that selfishly, I am going to be a huge burden to those around me that I care about at some point, because I didn't take care of myself. And so my health is my number one most prized possession, valuable asset. And regardless of whether my insurance covers something or not, I look at it and go, this is an investment in my now and my future, and the now and future of those around me that I care about. So I don't know, that's how I look at it. I'm sure most of your patients do. I think most of my patients do. I think we've got that philosophy going on in the office, and it's refreshing, because that's not the general population thought.
No.
For health and healing. Yeah.
No, we have to baby step people, because I've tried in the past to vomit on people all the things they could and should be doing, and that totally backfires. Totally backfires. I have to, like, one step at a time, and as people ask more questions, we just take them one gradual step at a time, depending on how much they want to learn. Yeah. And everybody's different.
Everybody is different. But I hope that the audience, if they've listened to this far along, which I hope they have, that they take away that really the cure for these problems is in the prevention. You've got some great preventative tips that you've given us, which I still want to just get a few more out of you.
Oh, I can go on for a while if you really, really want, but
I want to help them with that prevention idea. But I think the key thing they also need to walk away with is, look, your most valuable asset is you. So invest in you. Don't. And I'll use the example here with Shannon again. I mean, she's an angel in the flesh. I want to take care of this woman that I'm here in Tijuana helping with. It's not free, and my insurance doesn't cover it. But we're here because it's valuable. Her health is valuable to herself and to me and to our kids. And so you do it. You invest in it because it's worth it.
It is. It is. And I'm hoping if nothing else comes out of this coronavirus hoo-ha, is that people take a higher value in their own health, because ultimately this is how you become, immune to this, is your health, is it's immune system problem. Yeah. So if you're really, really strong, and you'll see that all over the news, people that are immunocompromised are the ones who are at the highest risk.
Yeah, so absolutely.
It's your lifestyle, it's your immune system. And you can argue about how to do that, but this is the stuff I've learned over the last 20 years.
Great.
So anyway, I can give you a few more. But
yeah, Dr. Altman. So let me just close with this. I think this will probably help us sum this up. Let's say you or your spouse developed an illness, a bad illness, or let's just say cancer, since cancer or Alzheimer's, since those are the two we're looking at. What are the things that you would do to help deal with that?
You have to look at the causative agents. Okay, there's I don't know if you remember Larry Markson. He's an old chiropractor from the Parker days. He said something way, I mean, it's got to be 17, 18 years ago that I remember. And my wife's a chiropractor as well. And she reminded me of this, that he used to say, cancer is the cure. And so if you understand that cancer is the cure, then you'll understand that you have to figure out, like, what is the metabolic problem? What is the underlying problem that is driving that? And so if one of us gets cancer, then we've missed something. We've missed something that we didn't understand. And actually, there's a really, really good book that everybody should read. It's from Veronica Desailliers. She's a chiropractor in Canada, and she ended up with breast cancer. Lived a great life, lived a really, really healthy life, and she got breast cancer. And she's like, well, what? I don't understand why. Why did I get this? And so she wrote a whole book on all the things that she missed. And so you have to sit down and do a real self-evaluation. I'm like, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Could it be my cell phone? Could it be my guts haven't been right for a long time? Is it my whatever it is? There's a myriad of things. And it's a really good book on understanding what you might have missed. Because if you're not leading a very good life, well, then you got to start over from the basics. But that's where everybody's starting from. But for us personally, we lead pretty good lives. We lead a very healthy life. We try to avoid a lot of things we talked about. And you'd have to back up and go, what happened? Where did I go? And I would probably go to Mexico. I would probably look at some alternative treatments, because, like I said, I'm very good at the prevention aspects. But if there's something that got past that, then there's something else that needs to be dealt with on a treatment level.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd seek some alternative advice from people who do that all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because in the United States, those are driven out of business or imprisoned, you have to go outside the United States to really get some alternative opinions. And you'd have to go somewhere else to seek some other input, which unfortunately isn't covered by insurance. And that's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
And then I would try to figure out like what I missed, and then try to get some alternative treatment opinions in another country.
Well, that's good, solid advice. And on that, that's kind of what we're doing. I have to admit, hey, we're doing that. We're in that same boat where we've been proactive and preventative and been as health conscious as we could be. Maybe not to the extreme that you guys are. You guys are a great example. Thank you for all the example you are with the helpful stuff that you do.
Sure.
But in this, it's really been interesting as I've looked up and starting to prepare for some of these other interviews and for some articles I'm writing up, that in the States, we are not offered the variety of support that we're getting. It's usually like, this is the gold standard. This is what you get. It's chemoradiation or chemoradiation surgery, chemoradiation. That's the only item on the menu. And when people start to divvy outside of that, medical doctors can lose their license for prescribing something outside of that. I think it's getting a little better, but that's where it's been before. And for naturopathic doctors or health nuts that want to do something natural, we start going down that road and helping people, we disappear or our doors are closed, or that's not the freedom that we would expect in the wonderful country of America. But yeah, there's some other weird statistics. When I just asked you, what would you do? And they did that same poll for oncologists. And I just can't imagine working in something. If I owned a tire store and I had stone tires instead of rubber tires, that doesn't make any sense. I would have the best rubber tires that I could offer on my car as well, because that's what I'm trying to sell people. 80% of oncologists would not do chemotherapy if they came down with cancer. And that's like, how do you sell that if you don't even believe in it to do it? Some really interesting statistics I put together over the next, I'm going to share on some other topics. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. What's that?
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I learned from a lot of the research that I did was one of the reasons that the chemo doesn't work is it doesn't kill the stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people have reoccurrences, is the stem cells are the ones that, because the chemo kills the daughter cells. And so a lot of people, you'll see 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, whatever it is, they'll have these flare-ups and these reoccurrences. And that is part of the reason why, is they've never changed the underlying problems. So that's one of the real scary things about chemo is it's not your end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll knock the tumors down or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're free, you're home free. If you go back to your normal life, then things aren't going to go so well. And the other problem for a lot of people is the metastasis.
Mm-hmm.
And the metastasis kills like 9 out of 10 people because it's spreading. So one of the things that you want to look at is Dr. Rath wrote a really good book. I think it's even free on his website. It's from Germany, on understanding metastasis. And that's, once again, the research he's done has vitamin C and L-lysine as their main treatments, which makes your tissues very strong, which makes it very hard for cancer to spread, because it's like trying to go through a stone wall versus a flimsy little screen on your back porch. Mm-hmm. So if you're strong and dense and your tissues are strong, it's much harder for cancer to spread. So I think those are pretty important things, and easy things that people can do. It's what we do. Silica also is one of the things I've learned will help make your tissue stronger. So we always have some C coming in, a little bit of silica, and then all that. I think we've covered quite a bit. But if people just back up and look at their general life, I think they'll overall be a lot happier and stronger. So in case you do come down with something, it's less damaging to you.
Awesome.
So it's easy to go through.
That's some great stuff. Well, thanks, Dr. Altman. I appreciate you taking the time with us today. And I hope our listeners dive into this information because it's golden. I mean, we got some nuggets today in this. So thank you so much. And all right, with that, I'll cut you loose for today, and I'm going to share this with the world.